No, it doesn't. Yeah. We're gonna go from pink shirts to wearing baby onesies.
Give me a onesie.
Ridiculous. All right, we're gonna mix it up a little bit. We haven't done this in a while. What are you grateful for? Let's get 2 or 3 shares. Business, life, family.
Back to school.
Adrian saying, "No kids, get out of my house."
For school.
What are you guys grateful for?
This is gonna be a Monday morning conversation.
You guys are killing me. Guys, ready to
I'll do one.
participate today? Let's
Yeah,
go.
I'll go.
Wakey, wakey. Let's go. Wake up.
In July, when
Vacation.
a lot of us were like out of town, or July was definitely like different. We didn't have a lot of people at ops. I really was like, oh man, like I miss my team. Like I miss seeing you guys every week, and I'm just grateful for us and the good relationship that we have and the good time that we can have together.
Good. Good. You hear that, guys?
Yes.
Reading between the lines, she's grateful that we're back ready to work the rest of the year. No more vacations. That's what she just said. No more weekend vacations,
I
Caroline.
heard she wants more pinball ops.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Who else had their hand raised? Cameron.
For the opportunity we had to do the parade of homes and everything. That was like a big shift in my business and things, ability to do that.
Good.
A lot of agents out there that I've talked to, like, oh, that's so lucky you're able to go out and work those and just sit in the garage all day kind of thing.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, that's a big deal. Big deal. Anybody else?
All the coaching and preparation we've done for all this changes.
Oh, very grateful for that.
To be ahead of the curve, yeah.
Good. Good. Yeah, hopefully, does everyone feel pretty confident? Being the first full week into this new environment, everyone feels pretty good about kind of where we're at with everything? Okay. Well, let's roll through things. Queen of the Hill, Amy Erdman at the top. 6 appointments. If you're not marking them, get in there. I think she's been up there for at least 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks now. She's gonna stay up there for a while. Closed leaderboard. Got Clay, Colby, Rich, myself, Amy, Chandler, Jake, Hunter, Bryce, and Ludlow. New and upcoming listings. What do we got this week? Is there anything hitting? We got anything dropping, Trevor, this week? Good 4, yeah, 4 or 5 last week. Do you have any this week? Any new ones?
He has land out in Cedar Fort land.
Yeah, tell us about that. What is that? Just
16
land?
acres. It's zoned commercial, so it's perfect for your gas station folks, your storage unit folks, your. We already had a recycling company. That's probably number one. What's that? Cedar Fort. So it's Eagle. It's honestly
Eagle Mountain.
darn near just Eagle Mountain. It's on the border of Cedar Fort, Eagle Mountain, right on the highway. Like it's literally on the highway. Got all the utilities. You can even get some residential on the backside because it's both. It's commercial and residential. It's really cool, simple zone.
Cool.
So,
Cool. Okay, anything else? We've got Colby's. It hit last week, but you guys saw $299, cheapest house in Salt Lake County. Okay, he's doing an open house. If anybody wants to go hang out, it will be a burn buster on Saturday. If you want to people watch, it's gonna be a fun one. You can just pull your chair up in the front porch and watch away. It should be a good one. Okay, 2 things. Obviously, we've got a lot of red. We talked about this last week. So, we're going to be real for a second here, guys. There is a trend that a lot of times you guys don't realize that we watch as a team, and the level of appointments that we have really dictates kind of closings and how much business we're doing. Okay, it's why we talk about tracking numbers and the importance of it. It's why really Caitlin is so disciplined on sending these out every day and hopefully keeping us aware of where we're at in our business. And one of the things that we've noticed, and this is a common trend as a team too, you come out of, into Caroline's point, a lot of vacations, a lot of things happen during the summer, and it causes us in our industry to work just naturally, you just work less because you're just busy with living life during the summer and kids home. And so usually that trend, business is predicted 60 to 90 days afterwards. Everything you do today, you'll reap the benefits of that, or should, in 60 to 90 days. And so we always as a team tend to see a dip here end of August, September, because you get your June, July, what really affects those 2 months, okay? And so that's, I think, part of the reason why we have so many of us in red. And we've talked about market reports have changed, so there's a great opportunity there. Okay, with Jakers being rented out fully as a private event on the 27th, the next 2 weeks, we want to spend time as a team catching up on DTD2, okay? And making sure all of our invites are out, we're all cut up, and we're really prepping ourselves for this fourth quarter push that we're going into, okay? So, can everybody commit the next 2 weeks? And can we commit to getting all of us in the green? Can we do it? You guys gonna come?
Let's do it.
Clapping?
There will be competitions and prizes.
Oh,
I'm there, let's
It'll
do
be
it.
so fun. Pretty
Okay.
much.
There's also opportunities for you guys too. Like if you roll in, you're like, man, I'm already at the green. What do I do? There's a lot of opportunities in team ponds. There's a lot of appointments that have been pulled out of there. It does take a lot of work. You know, it's not like you can call 10 people and set 2 appointments out of there. I wish it was that easy, right, Troy? Would be really nice. Amazing if we could just call 10 people out of there and set a couple appointments. But there is people engaging with us, and this is a great opportunity to just lead gen, have contacts, and we'll really get in. We're going to talk market stats today and mega camp things. And so this is the time in being in our business where, you know, I think we've got a lot of aspirations for next year in 2026, but finishing out this year and you guys trending as a team, tracking our goals and trying to finish strong is all going to depend on how much time do we spend having conversations, talking to people, overcoming objections, and just pushing. And it is a lot of the day-to-day activities. Okay, so that's next 2 weeks. Okay. You want to explain this, Caitlin?
Yes, so I sent a text and an email, but just to kind of follow up. So essentially, we have talked about like the highest engaging content that we send out to our database is deals, right? Like everyone's looking for a deal nowadays. So I don't want to bombard our database, or 80% of our database that's not looking to transact. So this is specifically for people, any active buyers that you currently have, or any people that are like, oh, just as investors looking for a deal. All you need to do for them to receive this email once a month on the 15th is tag them deals and brevity. So just make sure all of your buyers go ahead and tag them. You will want to preemptively have a script with them so they understand what this is. It's off-market deals, wholesale deals, any builder incentives, any cheap seller financing deals, right? That's all going to be included. But I want you guys to preface it with a conversation so they just are like, what are these random houses that you're sending me? Again, it's only one additional email. If they want to see more, obviously we know how to find all these deals, so it's just getting it started. It's great to automate your process so you're not having to manually send these to your clients. And then in addition to that, every Wednesday I will also send a deal of the week, just social media graphic for you guys to post. Any questions about logistics of tagging and getting people to get these emails?
What's the tag?
Deals.
Deals.
Okay, right now we have 2 people tagged, so make sure you go through and tag the people.
Has anyone had anybody reach out on social media from the post about this house, Colby's house?
Yeah.
Shaking, raise of
Just
hands.
with
What's that?
questions.
Yeah, questions. Yeah,
Pretty close right now.
but that's our goal with this. Is that, to Kate's point, this has been some of the best stuff. And so if you guys come across deals where you guys look at a house and you guys are like, man, this just seems like an awesome deal, send it over to Kate and I. We'd love to look at it. We'd love to put it on the email. We're dropping them midweek because that really is the best opportunity. If you do have somebody that's actually interested, that's your most likely chance that it's not gone. You know, if it's still available on Wednesday, it's probably still likely that it's available versus it being a Monday or so. Okay, so the goal is hopefully it just gets people reaching out, connecting, and starts conversations with you guys.
Question with that deal for Colby. He's not here. Alright, never
I
mind.
mean, the
What's your-
inside
what's your
of
question?
is the
I see
inside
you
of that's
looking
pretty
at-
bad, right?
Yes.
So
That's why
It's
we
not
want
like-
interior focus.
Yeah, it's not like complete teardown.
It's not the
but
worst house you've seen?
No, no. No, but it's priced that way because the guy was going to be tough to see it. He's got 9 offers on it already. Nobody's been through the home, and the only time they're going to show it is at the open house on Saturday.
So I'm assuming that was my question. Is they're going to look at offers probably over the weekend then?
Probably Monday.
Monday?
Yep, probably Monday. So, if you don't have anything to do and you want to go snag up a couple buyers, I guarantee you there will be people that roll through this house, curious, sort of on the fence about buying, and so you could absolutely pick up some clients here. Okay, interest rate tracking.
So this is something, so you guys will receive an email. Previously it was coming from Jay, but I think a lot of people just don't respond to that because you're not recognizing that name. So it's gonna come from me. Anytime you guys close a buyer, you're gonna get an email asking what rate they closed at. I will then tag them in Brevity, and then we will create a call list. So say if rates drop to a certain percentage and your client is above that, then we're gonna send you guys a list and say, hey, by the way, you could save money by refinancing, right? So we'll start to do that. All you need to get those lists is just make sure you email me back, and then we'll do all the back end logistics for you.
This is after we close you.
Yep, so right after you close, it's like the day of, you'll get an email from me, and then just make sure you respond to that.
Okay.
Everybody knows what our buyers close at, but we're gonna go back. It's gonna be a chore, and we're gonna need your guys' help as well. We would like to go back and have conversations with people that have closed the last essentially two and a half years. And if some of you guys know what that interest rate is, great, let's put it in the sheet. But for those that we've forgotten about, we would love to go back and update. And so we essentially, from the start of 2020 until today, we have roughly over 350 buyers that the team's closed. And so when we talk about the potential possibility and the partnership with Aries, and one, it's a great conversation. Anytime we can save our clients money is an easy way to connect and reach out to them. And it's also just a way for us to have more support from Aries as we go out and realize like there is a couple hundred refinances that could take place and will take place over the next 12 to 24 months. And we want to make sure you guys are the person that provides that value to the client and captures that value add to them, okay? So initially that's kind of the process, but we are going to start having you guys create lists and go back so we can start updating and backdating some of those.
Because you recommend refinancing what percentage lower than like your current interest rate?
It's usually like your best bang for your buck really starts to get there when you're about 0.5% or more. So, I mean, it starts to add up. Like if you're trying to refi every 0.25%, it just doesn't make sense by the time somebody pays for all the costs. So you really want to look at it where it's like, you've got to be kind of at that 0.5% mark or greater before you really want to potentially look at spending the money, or a client does.
1% always makes sense. A
Yeah.
0.5% is like the aggressive thing,
Correct.
so that's the range.
Okay.
Yep. So, and we'd love to, that's where we'd love to initially, like if it gets a 0.5% better, we'd love to connect them with them, have the conversation start going, create that relationship with them, go through the numbers so they can see, and then depending on where we're at and what the feds are doing, you know, that can help us just start the conversation early, so that if it needs to get to that 1% mark, or someone's like, man, maybe I just wait, hold off, and we think it's gonna get better in a month or two, and then capture the refi. But that 0.5% mark is where we wanna initiate a phone call, connecting a lender, and starting that process, so.
I sent one to Eric just a few weeks ago.
Sweet.
I had a buyer reach
Sweet.
out. Yeah.
And we've got people, if you look back on the list, I've looked back briefly, we have people that closed at 7% or higher. Like that was a thing fall of last year. It was that fall of the year before. Like there is clients that if they haven't refied, there absolutely is a benefit, and they are at the 1% or greater right now.
And refinancing, like what are some of those costs included in that? How much roughly?
Similar to in some aspects. I mean, what is it? It's less than a purchase, but not. I mean, it's not like $1,000 by any means.
I'd be chasing the 2-1s, the people that did 2-1 buy downs.
That's exactly right. That's why
Yeah.
we
Correct.
there's at least 100 people out of the.
350. We're at like 365 right now from
I
2022.
did more 2-1 buy downs than
Yeah.
any other loan. Like
And there's-
last year.
And there's a good chance that they still have money in that escrow, in that account,
Yeah.
that they can use to refinance with.
Oh, great.
So yeah,
That's
can
a
you
good
wrap some of those like closing costs or whatever costs?
Yes.
You can
Yes.
wrap it
into
back
the loan?
in.
So
Yeah,
they
you
don't
can
have
wrap
to
it.
necessarily come with like
Correct.
$5,000 or more to.
Refinances
Yeah, no.
never come with money ever.
Oh,
No,
you don't?
the
Okay.
lender just wraps
Into
it.
either
They
the
just-
loan amount
okay.
or into the rate. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep, so it's covered. Okay, so that'll be a great one. We'll start just chipping away at that. We'll have some lists for you guys to call through, and then we'll just start chipping away at it and make sure that you guys are the person that provides the value when it gets there. Okay?
So right now, this week, I'm gonna send you all a list of all of your buyers and just say, hey, any ones you know off the top of your head, let me know, and we'll get them filled in. But then if it's not, like Cody said, that's a good conversation. Hey, what rate did you close at, just so I can be watching for you.
Okay, any questions with that? You guys good? Okay. Okay, Aries Mortgage September incentive. Okay, I sent this out. So, anyone that closes with Aries the month of September, it is a ticket to a Monday Night Football game in Detroit against the Seattle Seahawks, UWM. So Aries is covering the ticket, UWM is covering the plane ticket and the hotels. Okay, or it's a $250 gift card of your choice. Any questions? you guys have with this? Do you guys would you guys like to see more incentives done by the team?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Okay. Caroline says yes. Double thumbs up? One thumb up? Double. Or
why
double
not?
thumbs up. Okay.
I wanna go to Detroit. Come in. There you go.
Why does it always do this? The one in my office at church does this all the time too. It's so frustrating.
It's user error.
No, you have to like click it off, click it back on. Okay, and then you guys also saw, I did update this too. The first one that went out, we've got best, I wanted a cheat sheet. These are my probably most asked questions right now so far into this. So top part was just listing agreement, what's your best practice, explaining it, we went over that. And then in the addendum, I did get this approved by Dean. So instead of having the higher amount on the front page, this would be what you would add to your addendum to capture the additional costs for an unrepresented buyer. Okay, so it's on that sheet. The other thing that we talked about, and maybe I'd get your guys' feedback, but I wanted to add, Clay, I didn't ask you before, but when it comes to unrepresented buyer, a lot of times, you know, we will take listings less than 3%. And so instead of it being a standard 4.5 in here, I've told a lot of you guys, I think we would rather just have a baseline of what you would add to the transaction if it was the event that happens where an unrepresented buyer wants to purchase the home. I think a lot of times that's 1.5, okay? Clay, is there any argument with that? I think that's pretty fair. Normally you're offering 3% buyer commission or 2.5, so if you're at 1.5 addition, you're still saving the seller money. So if you decide to take a 2% listing, obviously then you would put 3.5 in this section. Does that make sense?
I would just underscore, like, we have the same philosophy that KW generally has, which is, you're your own business, you judge the situation. You know, my listings in Eagles Landing, I do not slide it at all, and I never will. It's way too much work, they're tiny little commission checks, like, no, I'm not gonna slide down. But on the same side, there's big listings, big fat commissions, where it's like, I might even slide a little more than that if you know, based on the scenario. So I don't wanna take that away and have like blanket policies for a team. I just wanna empower all of you, like, you're worth as much money as you feel you're worth, and hopefully that's a lot of money, and go charge it. And just be cautious too, when you discount anything, you're discounting it for the team, for everybody, so just be smart. But generally, that's been my philosophy, is
1.5.
1.5.
We'd like to probably add it to the listing packet, so it's in there, so we're also presenting it. We're gonna go the route of kind of putting it in there every time. I think that's something that we'll add into the listing agreement, so it explains kind of what the 1.5% covers, the additional services that are provided when that happens. Okay, you guys have any questions? The other thing you'll note, I had something else at the bottom, but because they just updated the REPC, this is the section that Kaiten updated for us. So I just included that in section 4.3E of the REPC, that's where you would put your commission. And if you're counter offering commission, then I've just put the verbiage that you would use in the counter offer. Okay, so it's all on there.
Thank you.
Any questions with that?
That's awesome.
So put up in front of you. If you've got any questions, this should help as you put together contracts. Okay.
Is this, I should know this, but is this in the buyer's packet? That's all the explanation of how commissions and stuff like that are, right? It's in the buyer packet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have this.
And I'll look at it, make sure it's up to date. We'll kind of finalize the listing in buyer packet one more time here now that everything's rolled out. But hopefully this is helpful as you guys are, like I said, putting deals together, that you can lean on this to help answer a lot of the questions that you guys might have. Okay. We give it to Johnny Bravo.
Does that work or just your thing?
Just that. I don't have it up to that.
Sweet. Well, hello. As you guys know, me and Clay just got back from Mega Camp. We zipped down there last week. Hot, 98 degrees, 100% humidity. I only was sweaty when I was outside, so we were in the air conditioning quite a bit. They're closing the Austin Convention Center for 4 years. I didn't know that until
Really?
just barely. They're closing in April next year. For some reason, it makes economic sense to tear the whole thing down and then rebuild it bigger, but they don't have any more land, which is weird. So they're going to be moving Mega Camp around the next 4 years. San Antonio's next year, if anybody wants to join us. But we wanted to bring back some items of value. It was fairly kind of just a really normal Mega Camp. There was nothing like breaking or, you know, exciting announcements, just a lot of just value add and just kind of the message of just keep working. We see the light at the end of the tunnel kind of message. There's two things I specifically want to talk about the last 40 minutes here of ops, and Clay's welcome to chime in because he was in both these, but most likely he was on his laptop the whole time anyway. So.
Taking notes.
Oh yeah, taking notes. So I'm going to go through the market report, and that helps me frame one of the topics that Gary prepared for us. If you don't know, Family Union and Megacamp, they always strap on this, the beginning CEO Summit. So if you're going to go to Family Union or Megacamp, it's actually become one of my favorite parts of Family Union and Megacamp. So we went that to day one, and that time when Gary speaks, and then usually the Gary Keller Masterminds that Clay and I go to, I think Gary does generally a really good job at trying to just step back and think, like, what do all of our top teams out there need? And he prepares a pretty good message for that. So we're going to talk about toughness and anti-fragility, being anti-fragile here in a sec, but I wanted to go to some of the market report data that they gave. This is only about 20% of the slides. Cody can revisit the whole slide show in a little bit, but kind of just reframe a little bit of why he gave us that message. GDP, you guys know this, 1.4, quarter one, 2.8. The most fascinating thing, I say this on my market report if you've ever caught it, but people want the data like as real time as possible. So normally the month will end, and within a week, 2 weeks, a lot of the job reports, GDP, inflation data, that all comes out. But what most people don't know is, I'm sure it's a very meticulous process. I don't know all the science behind it. But every time they roll out a new number, they go back in time and revise some of the previous data that they put out to be more accurate. And so GDP, normally the market's going up. Every time they revise data, oftentimes it was a little bit better than they first reported, and then they go back 1, 2, 5, 10 quarters, and then they'll revise it as they got more of the accurate data. The funny thing is, when the market hasn't been awesome, when they have gone back and revised it, which this is why Gordon, he's almost bald already, but he wants to pull the rest of his hair out, is because he can't just go and get the most recent quarter data. He has to go back and check and double check every single spreadsheet for all the data that we get from the sources. And so GDP's been one of those that it comes out, it feels positive, but then they keep going back and revising it lower and lower and lower. I've always felt like this one kind of has been propped up anyways by just the federal spending, but normally when we talk about a recession, which I'll get to the three conclusions or potential outcomes that we've kind of arrived at our KW research department of the recession probability and the types of recessions. I'll get to that at the end, which is why we're going through this, but GDP going down 2 quarters also with bad unemployment is what triggers the recession. I've always felt we've kind of been in a full-blown recession anyways the last year and a half. Specifically, we know real estate's been in a recession the last year and a half, right? You guys have felt it, and I'll go through some new data that we've got. But GDP, there's that. The big one, unemployment jumped up a little bit higher. This is the major concern for them, and this is what's going to put pressure on the Federal Reserve to get those rates cut, so then mortgage rates can start trickling down. We know the problem was inflation, that they tried to deliberately slow down the economy by raising rates, right? And how do we slow it down enough before it hurts it too bad, and then it's a lot bigger problem to reverse? But they want this to be at like 3%. The fact that it came in at 4.3 last month was, they projected 4.1, so it was higher than they thought. They also keep going back and revising this a little bit worse every time they put out new data. So unemployment, when you talk about just a 0.1 or a 0.2, we're talking hundreds of thousands of jobs that were lost in that 1 month period. And then the news one's always the inflation. And for the most part, give them some sort of credit, depending on whatever you believe about the government and the Federal Reserve, but they have slowed inflation. Whether we feel it or not, we've gone, from highs of 7, 5.5 down to the 2s. Just last month, it came out at 2.9, 2.7, which was refreshing to see that 2 number before the decimal. You can see just even June, we were right there, but that yellow one, the yellow one, that's the one that dropped to 2.9 just last month, which is great. But here's where what's helping, what's hurting. So these are inflation items with falling prices. If you bought a phone or a car, toys, televisions, airfares, furniture, any of that, those have been leading the decrease in inflation. And then the ones that are still rising, motor vehicle insurance, pretty much anything to do with insurance, we know, property taxes, property insurance, all that stuff. Admission to sporting events, I love looking at the contracts that they're signing with these quarterbacks that are just outrageous numbers, and then they just pass that on to the people that are showing up to the games and supporting them, right? But admission to sporting events, healthcare, photographic equipment, hospital services, blah, blah, blah. And then home sales, again, we are pacing to be below 2023. Right now, if we keep on this pace, it'll be in the high threes, but they are projecting the rate cuts that are gonna help have a little bit more increase of units sold, which is why they think still, they just revised this from 4.3 down to 4.2 over the last couple months.
That's what's interesting. As I looked at these slides, you'll get to the next one, but we're way behind last year's on every single month. So it's like, man, will there really be that big of a pickup the tail end of this year?
Yep.
That's like, is there a boom?
Who is projecting? The government is who's projecting that rate cuts are gonna cause us to bounce up to 4.2?
So we'll get to that, but a lot of it's just historical, reading history, and then a lot of the numbers correlate one with another, but even one of the times I saw behind the curtains, they track every potential source in the country that has some sort of projection. And they have this giant list of, why Zillow projects here, Realtor does this, and it is pretty fascinating how many things that they actually track to give their own version of a projection. So this is one that we've shown before, but this is totally into your pocketbook. So this is sides per agent. We know most deals have two sides, buyer and seller side. You can see 2007, we added 550,000 agents in that time period. Clay and I were right there on that very last chunk of that, but because so many agents jumped in the business, we went from 13.5 down to 7.5 sides per agent. And that was the heyday. I just heard about all those days that people were just getting checks. I remember even Jimmy Rex telling us about he would just get commission checks in the mail and he didn't even know what deals it was from because they were just closing deals so fast. We go through the recession, 2008, 2012, all these, agents, the bottom barrel, the realtor population, the onesie twosies, or the part-time, or like the ones that just got their license waiting for one deal to fall in their lap. All those people go away, which is one of the positive effects traditionally, if you're on the good side of it, of a cleansing of the industry just to get the sides per agent up for all of the agents that are committed to it. And I remember Gary talking about, his projection in this negative time period that we would lose about 300,000 agents from NAR. I kind of know he's kind of looking back in history now. But you can see what happened over the last, decade. We've added 500,000 agents. We added those and we kept growing, which dropped us from 9.8 to 6.4 sides per agent. They're projecting 5.6, again, with a little bit of bump towards the last part of the year, but if not, we'll be right around 5s. But you run that line back to the 70s, we're at the lowest record sides per agent that we've ever been in, right? But what like Gary always likes to point out is this chart. When you add that purchase price in, and thankfully values of homes haven't come down because of that underlying shortage of inventory, we still are projected to have the third best volume year in the history of our real estate market, right? Per agent. So the average agent will be that 2.24 million-ish volume. Which has totally helped. If the price would have dropped as fast as units were dropping, like that would have been probably under 1 million, which would be back to that recession time period, okay? And then this is U.S. existing home sales. I had Gordon throw this in. One of the things that I've looked between the lines of what's actually going on with our economy and the housing market and all that. So you've seen these already. 3.9 is what we're year to date rolling towards. The projection is going to be 4.2. Last year we were 4.1 million homes sold. Again, we were at 4.1, 4.2 million homes sold back in the recession time period. But you've got to even go back towards over here before we go sub 4s again. What I wanted to know is look at the last time we were like 4.1-ish. 2008, even go down to here, 1996, we were still at 4.1, 4.2 million homes sold. But the thing that I've always said in my head is I'm like, we have 100 million more people in the country than we did in 1998, 1996. We're at like 333 million people in the country. And so what I had him go find, because we got that population, but then the average household size, we're somewhere around 130 million households in the country. That to me is the buying and selling potential out there. You know, little kids in your parents' house aren't going to sell a house population-wise. So I had him divide the homes sold divided by the households at that same year period to give us this green line. So last year, 3.1% of all households sold a home last year. And you go look at that 3.1 number, you go all the way over, we don't have anything that low. And I would assume if we had data all the way back to 70s, 80s, 60s, 50s, whatever, I think last year we probably set the record for the lowest percent of households, homes were sold. Which, if you haven't felt that, that is the reality. That's the reality I feel, is because look at all the people that bought over the last decade. They have a rate under what, 3.5%, 4% max. Most of them, the number I saw the other day was like 56% of all homes in the country have at least 50% equity. You heard that stat?
Yeah, if you add in which ones are paid off, I think it's 76% of homes are either paid off or have 50% more or more equity.
Crazy. So you look at my world, right? Like we own a bunch of rentals. Our rent's kind of flatlined, you know, the last year or so. Every cost associated, even when I made a couple $100 net income, every cost associated with that rental property's gone up. My, you know, management, you know, the property taxes are outrageous, you know, insurance, HOA fees, you know, handyman, fix, repairs, all that stuff. So it's just eating up my operating income, but I'm looking at my rentals and I'm like, well, we got a 3.75% rate on that, you know, what are we gonna do even if we sold that, you know? So we just have all this trapped equity, which is why we have that record low. So how many people have thought about selling or buying or moving or whatever, but these high rates have just kept them there? It is record highs. So the pent-up demand that we have sitting there, if we get these rates down a little bit, you know, get the affordability recovered a little bit, I just think it's just gonna explode. And that's part of even going back to your DT, D2, you know, speech that you gave. You go work your butt off the next 4 or 6 months and truly make sure that you are connected to that market share in your sphere of influence and really try to capture it. You will be so thankful because every like potential deal you earn the next 6 months, over the next 18 months, it'll turn into 3 or 4 deals. So if you're ever gonna be lazy, just don't be lazy the next 6 months, be lazy when it comes back a little bit more, okay? Because it shows the pent-up demand that's out there. And again, even when rates go down, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we still got to solve the supply issue. You know, even Kamala was talking about 3 million. She's going to go build 3 million affordable homes out there, and I'm like, well, duh, we've been trying to do that. But here's the 3 potential economic scenarios. Okay, so there's no recession, light recession, heavy recession that Gary talks about. So no recession. This scenario will be defined by a resilient labor market which allows rates to be decreased before a recession sets in. The decline in rates will result in more home sales, but the recovery will be slow in housing as rates take time to come down. So if we actually achieve that soft landing concept, so they slow down the economy enough, they can systematically lower the Fed rate, it doesn't dramatically murder our unemployment and GDP, that's the soft landing concept that you've heard a million times in the news, right? So if we can kind of stay on that pathway, our unemployment, we can keep it below that 5%. We're already at what percent right now? 4.3. 4.3, so, and the other thing about, one of the headline things about revising numbers, just barely, does anybody have the KSL text?
I was just gonna read it. I was gonna read it.
So,
I just pulled it up, 9 a.m. this morning.
So the last 12 months before this week, it actually came out on Monday, but the last 12 months, the government's reported that we created 2.9 million jobs in the country. And you'll see that every news report, every month, they'll be like, we created 150,000, we created 300,000 jobs or whatever. What they just did is they went back and revised it, and it was one of the most aggressive like revisions ever that it wiped out a whole nother million jobs that they thought they created that they didn't actually create. So out of the 2.9 million jobs created in the last 12 months, we actually only created 1.9 million. So again, unemployment, GDP, inflation, I've always felt like there was so much like not total accuracy in that, but that's just another reason that leads me to believe that we're kind of already somewhat in a recession. But that's what we need to watch on unemployment. The next couple months, if you watch any headlines, Do we go above that 5% unemployment? Because if we do, that's where the Fed will have more and more pressure to get rates down. But if we don't, what would happen is unemployment would stay below 5%, which would be still healthy for the country. Interest rates will fall to 6, maybe slightly under 6%. We're starting to see a little bit of reprieve on that in the last couple of weeks. But then that would, just even that little bit of rate decrease would bump our home sales up to 4.5 million. Okay, and if we're on pace, you know, for 3.8, 3.9, like that other 600,000 homes sold would definitely be helpful, because that turns into 1.2 million sides, and we still have a bunch of agents getting out of the business, right? So that's no recession. This is normal recession, so this is either us declaring that we're in a recession, or we get a little worse on these numbers. So we would end up unemployment somewhere around the 6 to 8%. Interest rates, we'd be propelled to drop them more rapidly, so interest rates would fall more to the 5 to 6%, and then home sales at those rates, the projection would be somewhere around 5 million homes sold. So historically, falling home sales lead us into recessions, and rising sales lead us out. After 3 years of declines, the transition into recession would trigger a more aggressive drop in rates from the Federal Reserve and stimulate the housing market to drive the growth of an economic recovery. Over the last 100 years, they used the real estate market, the real estate industry, as the growth driver to get us out of a bad economy. So that's why they would aggressively lower the rates, because they know that would turn on the machine of real estate that would drive the whole entire economy out of a recession. Worst case scenario is this banking recession. So in this scenario, something damages the banking system, creating a shock to lending. Home prices, home sales will fall despite low mortgage rates. This happened in the Great Recession and savings and loans crisis. So this is just the banking, financial institutions would drive us into a full-blown banking recession. Unemployment would go up to 8 to 10%. They would have to just chop those interest rates dramatically back, probably down to 0, which would get back down to 3 to 4% interest rates. And then home sales, because prices at that point would actually start going down because of the desperation of sellers, we'd end at 4 million or less homes. Okay?
This is 2000.
This is 2008. This is highly unlikely from what Gary and the research team says. We're somewhere around a mid 90%ish that it would be 1 or 2, so the first two. Very unlikely this one, but it's still a possibility that we have to pay attention to. And one of the drivers of this could be that whole commercial debt looming. We got $1 trillion of commercial debt that need to be refinanced over the next 12, 24 months. Which to me, like, if they just let that happen under current rates, yeah, that's a ticking time bomb. But that to me is just another pressure it's going to put on the Fed to get rates down to prevent a banking crisis, right? So those are the potential outcomes. Any comments on this before I jump in?
And it's all driven by unemployment, right?
Unemployment, at this point, it seems like unemployment is the major metrics that is the driving force. So to me, what have we been in the last 12 months? 18 months. Way higher interest rates, lower home sales, right? And unemployment has been low, but it didn't really matter to us whatsoever, right? So even recession, no recession, or that light recession, the 1 and 2 option, either of those two are better. Like, and that's why Gary's already been quoted in like Inman and all the real estate sources, because he said this on stage in the mega camp. He just said, we've already experienced the worst case, the worst part of this. So like for me, like we're not only seeing the light of the tunnel, like we're entering out of the tunnel right now. So,
but there's still a possibility that number 3 happens.
yeah,
Yeah,
slim
we talked
possibility,
about
but
that.
yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, you saw those banks that collapse. You get a little bit of that happens with the commercial lending, and that causes banks to just go under. I think that's where you have a huge.
And this is revolving around commercial lending, not necessarily.
Correct.
It could be a
consumer
bunch of random, numerous things, like a world war could take us into this, you know, like, but like the commercial seems like that's one of the most variable out there. But we've had all of our loans adjust or refinance even, and just like it hurt, but it just same thing as our normal rentals. It just wiped out whatever was good. You know, if you had cash flow, it just wiped them out. So we're like 0 cash flow on our commercial buildings right now because of those rates. So even if they drop, we'll be able to refinance again. But all right, so you guys have been through some tough times, right? Tough times a little bit. So I'm going to go through the presentation on the CEO Summit that Gary did personally. So a bunch of quotes at the beginning. I'll just zip through these, and then we can kind of have more of a discussion. So tough times don't last. Tough people do. Tough people don't just survive; they thrive. So what is tough? And how do we become it? How would you define tough? What's other words that come to your mind when you think about tough? Resilient,
Relentless.
relentless,
Determined.
determined,
Grit.
grit, grind, yep. So anti-fragile is a concept conceived by Nassim Taleb to describe anything or anyone that isn't fragile. Fragile is anything or anyone that is easily broken or damaged. Anti-fragile is anything or anyone that becomes more robust when exposed to stress, uncertainty, and risk. Anti-fragile is the opposite of being fragile. Some things benefit from shocks. They thrive and grow when exposed to volatility, disorder, stress, risk, and uncertainty. Anti-fragility is beyond resilience or robustness. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better. We're going to go through a whole bunch of examples on this. So Taleb believes, I just ordered all of his books too. They're great books. I opened a couple of them already. But Taleb believes the existence of anti-fragility is beyond everything that has changed, that with time, evolution, culture, ideas, revolutions, political systems, technological innovation, cultural and economic success, corporate survival, good recipes, the rise of cities, cultures, legal systems, equatorial forests, bacterial resistance, even our own existence as a species on this planet. When we say tough, we want you to think anti-fragile. You're not just strong, you're strong, and stress is making you stronger. So why does this matter? Why be tough? Because shit happens. Tough times are guaranteed. If you live long enough, anything that can happen probably will happen. With 8 billion people on the planet, a 1 in a million occurrence literally happens to 8,000 people every single day. So if it's a 1 in a million chance, there's 8,000 people that are experiencing that on the planet.
Buying lottery today.
So no matter where you are on a scale of rough times at the moment, sooner or later, even rougher times are going to slam into your life. It's not if, it's when. Crisis and adversity are deeply woven into the fabric of human existence. Crime, accident, divorce, unemployment, illness, addiction, betrayal, death, cash flow problems, the list goes on and on. Directly or indirectly, calamities and tragedies touch us all. Sometimes they strike like a sledgehammer. Even people, if you feel like you've kind of gone through life without a major calamity in your life, it's probably because you're way too young. You just got to live longer and something's going to happen. Whether it's financial stress, divorce, kids, that's probably most of ours in here, but just, it's eventually, right? Even people that got it totally, the world's perfect, bam, a health challenge or, something's going to come out of it. So when 7.1 million homes are sold and you're hitting your numbers, you're getting a huge assist from luck. When it's 4.1 million home sells and you hit your numbers, it's probably not luck. That's being tough. There is a great quote by Naval Ravikant that says, in 1,000 parallel universes, you want to be wealthy in 999 of them. So we have to factor luck out of it. I want to live in a way that in my life played out 1,000 times, Naval is successful 999 times. I go back and forth on this, even in my own life, but I have this talent, habits, they're doing the right thing versus luck spectrum when I look at people and their success in business or finances. And some people are clear over here. Some people I'm that's 90% luck. Even when I look at Clay and I's life, there's so much luck that was speckled into what we did. We showed up, we worked hard. So I'm maybe we're in the 50-50 category. So if you were to get thrown in a parallel universe, totally start over, doing the same things that you've done, would you still have the same trajectory of life? Would you still have the same outcome, positive or whatever? So you need to be living your life in a way that increases that probability. No matter what life throws at you, that toughness or that anti-fragility comes in, right? So in a career of 50 years, you'll most likely go through at least 5 booms and 5 busts. You want to approach your life and your business in such a way that you thrive throughout good times and bad. So you want to be tough. Everybody, a career of 40, 50 years, 5 booms, 5 busts. I've been wanting to have a mastermind and reflect on the last 2 years and just say, what are all the lessons we learned? Because as soon as we get in a good market, we're going to forget them, and our entire brain's going to be wrapped around that good market, and then we're going to roll into the next downshift and be like, how did this happen? What? Where did this come from? But if you can make sure that you're documenting the life lessons that you're learning and then putting them in place when that same history repeats itself or the same cycle repeats itself, that's part of just being successful in life, is timing those big time periods. You look at all these very seasoned investors out there, the Warren Buffetts, all that, they're not making these one-time miraculous decisions. They're just playing that long-term cycle game of just trying to be prepared for that, right? Yep.
To underscore that, that's why we talk, I know it gets boring, but that is why we talk about the market data so much. Because a lot of stuff can be predictable and we want to take advantage of these moments. It was funny talking to, I've got my buddy getting into real estate, we came to a team meeting yesterday. And I said, hey, you passed the test, congrats, gave him a high five. And I'm like, well, go get signed in today. Because he has his paperwork. He's like, well, I'm actually like hesitating to join KO because I might want to go join Edge. Or just like be a builder agent because it's just a little more secure of income. And I used this principle and just said, like, we literally could be just a matter of months from a little mini boom in real estate. Scoop up a bunch of refis, scoop up a bunch of buyers. Like, it has been tough for the last 2 years. You're gonna miss out on that if you were exclusive to a builder. And it's like, the only reason I was able to talk like that is I had just gone through these slides and just got the confidence boost that like, there's a very high probability that we will see an uptick in a lot of metrics over the next year. And I wanna take advantage of it and set myself up for it because we're doing the best we can to predict it.
Yeah. Well, and here's the event. So event happens, it negatively affects everybody immediately. We're tough people, they figure it out, they have a reality check, they've learned from history, whatever, and then they're able to turn and continue the upward pace. Not tough people is just this huge downward swing. One of the other speakers, well, this will be a whole nother one, but he wrote this book called The Z Book. He's one of those generations, you know, on what the behaviors, they do research on them, whatever. One of the things that he said that made my light bulb go off is the entire millennial generation is like this. Like I basically have half people that have made, in my world that I went to school with, high school, grew up with, half of them have just been on this upward trajectory. They got a good job, you know, maybe they went to school, they start getting into investments or whatever. And then I have this other half that just never really made a positive life choice. And then they immediately start feeling like they're behind everybody. And instead of like that turning into energy to go catch up, they have just been like this downward trajectory. So like the millennial generation is really split totally in half right now. And it's fascinating to see is because some way or another, like events have happened that just totally turned them out to be not up. Even this downswing of the economy, like I had 20, 25 really good, awesome producers, good friends in this brokerage that just couldn't psychologically or emotionally get over what we went through the last 18 months, that they were making $200,000, $300,000 and it just wiped them out. And they could have so easily done it, but they're just like, nope, can't do it, right? And that's part of just building up your resistance to those events that happen. So toughness is the ability to absorb the licking and keep on ticking. Mike Tyson said it this way, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And that's true unless they've been punched in the mouth a lot. You can count on receiving a lot of licks and a lot of punches in your lifetime. The question is, how will you respond? Tough people will always respond the best. So what is tough? Toughness training models say that toughness can be thought of as a combination of 4 qualities. Flexibility, responsiveness, strength, resiliency. Flexibility is how much I can withstand without breaking. Responsiveness is how quickly I can change when change is needed. Strength is how much energy I have to do something. Resiliency is how quickly I can do it again. Toughness is the answer. Training for it is the proactive way to go get it. Flexible, responsive, strong, resilient. Fail to be flexible and you'll break instead of bend. Fail to be responsive and you'll be unable to adapt to new conditions. Fail to be strong and you're incapable of generating great amounts of energy and force. Fail to be resilient and you can't cover quickly from stress. If you aren't flexible, responsive, strong, resilient, you can't be tough. Think about every major change that's happened to our industry. Did you respond flexibly, responsively, strong, and resilient? Even these buyer changes, right? And everything the August 17th date brought, it's causing full-blown panics in agents, and I'm like, breathe through it. Like even your comment when you were in team meeting, like it turned into a little bit of a shiz show because people were like,
Banana.
What's a banana?
their brain just started thinking like, oh, what could be negative? And you're like, why is everybody freaking out? Like we've known this is coming. It doesn't seem that complicated. So here's the problem. The challenge is that traditional stress management strategies fall into 2 categories. We remove the number 1, we remove the stress by retreating. You hit stress, you retreat. Or number 2, remove one's emotional response by detaching or suppressing it. Neither of these strategies lead to toughness. You just box that stress up, you bury it down low, and it's never going to come back up, right? Just kidding. You see toughness training everywhere. Do you know why they have fans in a greenhouse? So there's the fans in the greenhouse, right? They've got the water systems, they've got the right lighting. Why do they have fans in there? The fans are blowing on those plants, and it strengthens their root system because they're having that stress and that pressure against them. So when you go to transplant them or remove them from the greenhouse, it drastically increases the probability those survive. So that's why there's fans in it, right? So the train plants to build stronger structures as they grow, so when they go out in the real world, they can stand up in the wind. Allergies are treated with repeated exposure in small doses, even a lot of vaccines, right? Muscles are trained through the controlled tearing and rebuilding of muscle tissue. Business systems become better through stress testing and improving. So building physical toughness is the best example of how this has positive effects, and then we're going to go through all the other areas of life real quick. So maintaining the current level of stress on a muscle will not cause strength to increase. Strength gains occur only when the muscles are stressed beyond the point where they are normally stressed. This is called the overload principle. So if you work out and you're lifting light weight over and over and over, and you never actually fully put stress or get close to reaching to failure, your muscles will never break down to grow bigger. That's why a lot of bodybuilders, a lot of high-level strength trainers, like they try to get to 6 to failure. Like at least get to six reps on whatever the exercise is, and then they try to get to failure because that is where it will break down your muscle, and then when it regrows, it's like when you break a bone, it will grow back stronger, the quote they always say. Number 2 is overstresses must be avoided. A muscle overstress too great for current capacities may actually lose rather than gain strength, and the risk of injury is quite high. The old adage, no pain, no gain, is inaccurate because pain is the body's way of telling you that you've gone too far. So you can push the stress too far that actually hurts you more, right? So you got to understand what that point is. Number 3 is research shows that you use it or lose it. Applies here because regular dose of exercise to build strength and power is required to get stronger. The most important point to hear is that these adaptations will require time, will not occur if the cycle of stress recovery are excessive. So even that, like if you're not moving that muscle group, like I've heard anywhere from 1 to 2 times a week, not even to failure, but if you're not using that muscle, it will shrink, it will get smaller, right? So many things in the physical world all have to do with stressing our body out, and it actually performs better. Sauna, all the science with saunas right now. It is putting so much pressure at the cellular level that it makes it stronger and more resilient. Saunas, cold plunges is like that. Fasting is like that. You know, muscle strength, cardio, HIIT training, like everything he does at Orange Theory, all that same perfect stress level that actually has progress after, okay? Life itself can be viewed in terms of expending and then recapturing energy. For those reasons, counterbalancing stress and recovery on a regular basis is essential for achieving maximum power and health. So when you put the right amount of stress on your muscles, you need that recovery just as importantly to recover that muscle for it to continue to grow. So producing cycles of stress and recovery is what's been called making waves, and has been proven to not only make you stronger but help fight off disease. If you don't find ways to make healthy waves of stress and recovery, then most likely you will seek out unhealthy ways to try and regulate and cope. The risk is you may get stuck in coping and never recover. Toughness training, let's skip some of these. Stress test. You kind of get this point. So the path to tough is creating stress in a very controlled way. The secret to doing that is setting a stretch goal you will work to achieve that tests you and builds up your stress tolerance. The way to toughness is through stress testing and recovery. The gift you get is stress tolerance. Think of it as preparing to weather any storm. You wouldn't do that haphazardly. You would take the necessary precautions to get through it in life. Most are not prepared for storms. Tough people are prepared. Stress that you create is happening for you, not to you. Predicting rain doesn't count. Building arcs does. So let's hurry and hit these 7. These are great. These are the slides that we were taking pictures on the screen and trying to throw in the chat if you guys saw any of them. So these are the 7 areas of life: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relationships, and business. So let's talk about physical. You have to be putting these, both stress and recovery, all the areas of life, somewhere into your regiment, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. So stress, HIIT cardio, weight training. That puts the stress on you physically. The recovery side of physical is sleep. Sleep just continues to be researched more and more important in our health, right? You get crappy sleep, like it is so destructive to so many things. Eat for nutrition. 3 is stretching, soft tissue work, and then even plan time off physically. You guys get that one, that's the easiest category. But let's look at mental. How do you put stress on your brain mentally? Read for growth. There's reading for pleasure off to the right. Reading for growth is on the left. Any books that are probably reading for growth are the ones that are easier to neglect versus Cody's romance novels.
Love those.
Number 2 is play
Especially the
problem-solving games.
juicy ones.
If you like playing games, maybe try to move from whatever games you're playing to more problem-solving based games that get your brain going, learning a new language, and then practicing music or art, or starting it. Recovery is sleep. Again, sleep's in so many of these. Read for pleasure, meditation, yoga, and creative outlets are the recovery components of mental. Emotional, stress, practice caring and empathy, practice transparency, and then practice vulnerability. So you practicing being transparent, you practicing vulnerability is putting stress on you emotionally. And then the recovery side of that is have an outlet for expressing, nurture relationships, practice gratitude. Gratitude is a recovery for me. It really, like, we've talked about this at length different times, but that makes so much sense to me, recovery side of emotional. Meditation, and then even adopt a pet was on there. Who has a pet?
Because she causes more stress.
Yeah.
Depends on what pet, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, I prefer to die.
And then spiritual is showing love, and then giving your time, giving your money. That's how you stress your spiritual side of that. Did you just yawn, Bishop?
Yeah, I feel like I give a lot of number 2.
You can have my time or money, but in your case, you can have both
Yeah.
in the church, right? Recovery of that is prayer and meditation. Number 2 is accepting love. And then number 3 is accepting the gift of time and money. So if you feel like you're exhausted and you're overstressed of giving your time and money spiritually, that's maybe where you have a weakness of accepting love, accepting the gift of time and money. Who wants to mow Cody's lawn? Just kidding. Mow your own lawn. Financial. Stress. Push yourself to earn the most money you can. Not what you need to make. Push yourself to earn the most money you can. Real estate's about following a schedule, not about selling houses, right? Number 2, live beneath your means. Is that hard? That puts stress on us. What do we cut out? How do we decrease our lifestyle? Number 3 is becoming an investor. Recovery side of that is keep ample reserves, build and follow a wealth plan, pay down debt, save for and pay your taxes on time. Does paying your taxes on time help you recover financially? I think so. Definitely a lot less stressful.
Yeah.
Relationships, number 1, to put stress on it, is be willing to be all in. 2, listen. 3, practice selflessness. And then recovery side of that is conversations and quiet, intimacy and touch, journaling and counseling. And then you got business, which is stress, cast a bigger vision, create a bigger plan, be accountable. To be accountable, truly authentic accountability, is that put stress on you? Does me. And then succeed through others. When you're an OCD perfectionistic person, Caden and me, is it stressful to try to succeed through others? Yep, right. Recovery, time block work and play, practice the 80-20 rule, take regular breaks, calendar time, find your people. And then wrapping it all, let's change the conversation around, and our attitude around stress. Instead of it being this miserable thing, we need to have the positive outlook on it that it actually does for us. No pressure, no diamonds is in bold. Let's go from saying I'm feeling stressed, I'm being tested, I'm becoming tougher, to saying I'm creating stress to test myself to ensure I'm becoming tougher. Let measured stress be a gift you give yourself. Let stress happen for you. So just a quick case study of me. When I went through all this, if you remember just barely when we did that time exercise, when I tried to force you guys to write down what are your time operating rules of life, I'm doing that for all these areas of life. So I even added time to this, I added fun to this, I added a couple other areas, but I'm trying to just say, all right, where is the stress side of this? Where's the recovery side of this? What are the habits, that might not be fully defined on that? Hitting your macros or, whatever area of life it might be. And then it just continually reinforcing, creating your mind map or your operating manual for that area of life, that then simply those things just need to be time blocked on your weekly calendar, stress and balancing the recovery side of things, okay? Whew, that's it, sorry. That was like an hour and a half trying to get through in 30 minutes. What'd you guys think? A couple of ahas and then we'll wrap up. How you feeling about that? It's good? Helpful?
Yes.
Anything you want to talk about?
I have so many thoughts, but we're out of time.
I know.
But can I just say one, and I know this is just a little bit of cheerleading, but kind of back to the market data in this, I think it is super inspiring for me to think the last 18 months have toughened us up, and we're still here, we survived. And so with the market data saying like, hey, like a recession could actually bring a nice little, mini boom in real estate, and then going through this, it's like, man, did I get good? Have I been staying up with my DTD2 and talking to my sphere of influence, and will I be able to reap what I sow? And so, I mean, we go through all this, I mean, not to like pat ourselves on the back and stuff, but kind of like, yeah, like hopefully we have toughened up, and hopefully we'll continue to have an attitude of hard times will only make us reap more when the good times come.
I think it's okay to pat yourself on the back though. I mean, like I look at that slide and said, in 50 years you're gonna have at least 5 ups and downs, and I look back at my career, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, there's been a few, but to come out of that, yeah, pat yourself on the back. I think that's a good way to really recover from that stress we're talking about, because we get through this. This has been a really, really challenging one for a lot of people, and a great thing to learn. So, in those other times I was thinking about, I've learned a ton. And look at how much we've just actually accumulated over the last 18 months. So, yeah, get that and just let it launch us forward.
Yeah, it's like the last 4 years even, COVID, the fastest rate increases in history in a short time period, like all the things that we've gone through, even now, the lawsuits, all that stuff, like it's been a lot, so it's our resilient agent base that have come here. Like we've got a lot of new agents that have replaced some of the people going out that just didn't experience a lot of that. But I think more than anything, it's just, if you've had a decent year the last year, like good for you, if you're barely hanging on, hang on, because there's so much positive things penned up right now that's just like right there, especially if they drop rates even faster, that could be awesome,
It's so funny to hear these two talk about that, because as I was listening, I was like feeling like I really just didn't rise to the occasion. Like everybody else is feeling like, oh, I survived, and I'm like, man, like I could have done so much more. And now I'm like, well, I can't do anything about the past, so I guess the only thing I can do going forward is just work harder.
I don't think you recognize the resilience you create in downtimes until you're out of them and you're in good times, and you look back and be like, dang, that actually, I did grow a lot more than I thought. Like a good example, when I was just in Texas, so hot. Like I walk outside, I'm like, screw this, I'm out of here, I'm going back to Utah. But like I heard like 2 days later, I heard Joe Rogan on his podcast talking about the heat, because someone's like, it's so hot down here in Texas. And he's like, I don't even feel it. He's like, I get in the sauna every morning, and I've conditioned myself to be acclimated to it. He's like, I don't even notice it. So part of that is just the life that you've lived the last 2, 3, 4 years has strengthened you and got you more acclimated to it, that like any agent getting in the business the next 5 years hasn't seen that. So like you'll benefit from it, you just aren't appreciating it now.
When you say that though, I do think about the one thing that I can think about is being on the team has introduced me to so many more like weird challenges that I've had to like try to maneuver and like overcome. So I would say there has definitely been.
I was just gonna say, Cool, you're harder on yourself than most people I know, because I look back at the last year and I'm like, I don't know anybody that's like showed up more than you have, like led challenging conversations on Power Up, and like dealt with like weird freaking deals, and like handled them correct. Like
He literally has a boyfriend right now that has the cheapest house in Salt Lake County.
There's been a lot of weird deals for sure, but I can't help but think like there was so much that I left on the table by not working harder. So it's hard not to think that.
Yeah, you can always do better, but I just, it's almost like the last little bit's just like, all right, what's next? Like, all right, more changes, whatever, bring them on, like it increases the speed at your ability to take that stress that comes at you, so.
I think that's why too, just like tracking numbers in business is so important, because it really gives you a baseline of knowing when you're succeeding and not succeeding, and when you're obtaining those, or you're in those moments where you're like, man, for all of us, it's like, man, I just feel like I'm going through this dry spell or this rough patch, but it's like, if I can just come in and make those 10 conversations or whatever the number is, if I can just keep hitting that, that does contribute to the future, and looking back and be like, man, what if you don't do that now? What will the future hold? If you don't do the activities right now, how much will you leave on the table in the next 12 to 24 months? And so that is a number that, unfortunately, it would be really hard to figure out, but I can promise you for all of us, it's tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially.
Well, if you don't study history, you're bound to repeat it is number one, or you won't recognize the opportunities when they're right in front of you. Like if you guys could go back in time to 2018, where you could get a rental property at 3.25% interest rate, your down payment of 10% on that property would immediately cash flow that property positively. Who would have figured out how to come up with 10% to buy another rental? Everybody, right? So now that we know how bad it sucks to not have great rates and immediate cash flow on stuff, like when another time comes when like the numbers are just so awesome, I'd be like, I will mortgage my soul to buy 15 more rentals, you know? Okay, anything else? Okay, all right, thanks for coming then.